Summer starts this weekend, which means it's time to shop for sexy summer clothes. But this year, you might not have quite as many options as you've had in the past. Retail giant Gap is closing a quarter of their Gap brand stores, 175 locations. J.Crew is having an ugly year. Sales were down 5% in the first quarter, and the company is cutting 175 corporate jobs. In a call with analysts, J.Crew's CEO blamed the company's weak performance on, I'm not making this up, bad sweater designs. And American Apparel is trying to turn around their declining sales and image by ditching their signature sex appeal, to the extent that people ever found half-naked hipsters sexy in the first place, for a more demure ad campaign. It's not that people are buying fewer clothes overall. According to the Census Bureau, clothing sales in May were 3.6% higher than they were last May. So what are these three companies doing wrong, and what are some of their competitors getting right? Now here with me is Kim Bhasin, who covers retailers for Bloomberg, Bourree Lamb, associate editor at The Atlantic, and Bloomberg's Mary Childs. So, Kim, tell me about J.Crew. What did they do wrong with their sweaters that was so terrible?
Well, last year, J.Crew's Mickey Drexler, their CEO, said he sort of had this mea culpa and said that they had messed up women's clothes all of last year, meaning their designs are bad, they made strategic mistakes, just fashion flubs, just a bad year. And then coming up last quarter, they said, you know, we fixed most of these things, but we totally missed on sweaters. So there was the Tilly sweater, which is their main sweater. They didn't order enough of those, and instead they went too hard on the Tippy sweater, which is their I think they call it the shrunken cousin of the Tilly, and that didn't sell as well because the fit was wrong. You know, just that whole sweater business just failed. And
so, Bourree, you've been writing about Gap. What's the trouble in Gap's business?
Well, critics in both fashion and business are saying that Gap's classic American style simply isn't working for the American audience anymore. So their basics, denim, white shirts, khakis, that's just not what American consumers are looking to buy right now. If you look at successful brands like Zara, H&M, they're doing minimal basics, they're reinventing new basics, or they're doing designer collaboration, like H&M's collaboration with Alexander Wang sells out in hours, and Target's getting into the designer collaboration too.
So the difference between Gap and these other sort of mid-price chains is it's just that the Gap has lost the plot on style?
That's what the consensus seems to be, is that their consumers think that the basics that they're offering are priced just a little too high. They're not offering a piece of high fashion for the consumer at that price range.
And so who should we look to in terms of retailers who are on it right now and who are selling what people want and having big sales gains?
I would say the fast fashion retailers right now are doing quite well. So there's H&M and Zara. Both of these companies came in from Europe, and they just totally changed the landscape here. Just all this extra competition, all this logistically behind the scenes, the way they can bring something from the runway.
And so explain how that works, because it's H&M. They have new product basically every 7 weeks.
Yes, they have new product all the time. So they're looking at all the most recent fashion trends, and then they're using their supply chain to bring that all the way to market into stores as soon as they possibly can. And they do it so well, it only takes a couple weeks, and they have like the newest styles in stores, and they just do it over and over and over.
And then where is Uniqlo in this? I've been seeing them opening more stores in the U.S.
I think Uniqlo is offering basics at the price range that people like. They really feel like they're getting the worth of what they're paying at Uniqlo. And also, Uniqlo's been very smart in terms of balancing brick and mortar stores with e-commerce. If you look at their U.S. expansion, it's been very carefully planned. They had one store in New York, in Soho, in 2006, and they're only up to 40 stores right now. Compared to Gap, they're not very heavy in terms of having physical stores because they know how important e-commerce is for their business.
That's also creating some buzz around it, right? Like, I feel like, I just saw that Uniqlo's opened in Boston now, and it feels like when it comes in, it's like this is the cool thing to go shop there. And if there are 25 stores in the city, you don't.
Wasn't that part of Mickey's plan when he revamped J.Crew ages ago? He closed a lot of the stores because it creates this exclusivity where you can see it online, but you're, aspirationally looking for your J.Crew store, and they closed the one near you, so you have to go to hip Soho and buy it there.
Uniqlo's so different because they're not fast fashion, so they don't copy any trends or styles.
People tend to refer to Uniqlo as the Japanese Gap.
Right.
Is that the right?
Yes, it's a lot more Gap-like than H&M-like.
Okay.
In the way that they sell these basics at a very, very low price, but they also infuse technology into it, and then they tout that technology in the same kind of way that like Lululemon will advertise wicking in their yoga pants and things like that. Like the fabric tech behind it is something that they tout a lot and try to provide value in that way.
Although the interesting difference there is, like, Lululemon will say, this is a really high-tech pair of pants, pay $130
Right.
for it, or $90 or whatever.
And
it is.
Uniqlo will say,
Uniqlo
pay
is
like $15.
Pay $15 for this. So is that tech a real thing? Like, I don't know. I feel like I go in the Uniqlo store and they're like, this is the most high-tech shirt ever, and it's like
their heat tech.
Have you not worn the heat tech?
I've not worn the heat tech. Am I missing out? It's really
It's
good.
amazing.
I definitely, I mean, as a New Yorker in the winter, I think it's critical, and it does. I mean, I have found that my, few Uniqlo heat tech T-shirts are comparably, above and beyond anything from Gap, which is, kind of flimsy and cotton, doesn't do me much good.
And those are literally about like $20, right, or 15, depending on
Something
the
like
garment.
that.
Something like that, yeah.
The other thing that Uniqlo has been credited with is that they get men excited about shopping, apparently. And that's a part of the market that everyone's trying to get into.
And so I want to look at American Apparel, which I guess American Apparel is this company kind of like Abercrombie in that it had this like crazy CEO that people thought was the mad genius behind the company, but maybe in fact he was just crazy. And so now Dov Charney is out and they're putting the clothes back on. Are people going to want to buy American Apparel?
I think it's a question of quality. I mean, one of the things that's come through with all these brands is that you have to get the quality and the price point aligned, and customers are really sensitive to that. I think there may be a lag, but they're still going to say, I'm not going to pay $40 for a $20 T-shirt. So I think, with Gap, we were talking about the constant discounting. J.Crew as well. That's really hurt them in terms of convincing their customer that their goods are not worth what they're saying they're worth. And so with American Apparel, I think, their quality isn't ever going to be, they haven't really aspired to be high quality or, in any way aspirational in that way. So I think that if they keep the price point there and they master the kind of re-engaging millennials and re-engaging people on their, saying we're no longer this kind of gross, nasty company that strayed from values that perhaps you hold, I think once they master that, they could be back in the game.
Yeah. So one of the themes that we heard a lot about retail during the recession was basically the mid-range was in a lot of trouble, and that value retailers did well because people didn't have a lot of money, and luxury retailers did well because rich people still had money. Has that shifted now? It seems like some of these successful retailers we talk about are actually in the mid-range, and then like Banana Republic, which is a higher-end retailer, and J.Crew have both been struggling.
Well, you're seeing a lot of, let's look at department stores real quick. So you're seeing Macy's come down a little bit to grab some of that share that Sears and JCPenney vacated. So they're bringing their whole price point
So they're
down.
moving downscale.
Yeah, so they're moving down. And then you have the people above them, which is Nordstrom, then moving down a little bit. And everyone just coming down a little bit to capitalize on that empty space vacated by JCPenney and Sears. And I think they're absolutely trying to capitalize on that mid-market and not be as exclusive as they used to be.
Huh. Go ahead.
Oh, I think in the Gap story, it's important to look at their sister brands because that kind of represents where they are. So you have Banana Republic, that's the high-end brand, higher end, and then you have Old Navy, which is their value brand. And actually, Old Navy sales are doing just fine. So I think people really care about value and worth.
But wasn't that Old Navy success kind of hard won? Wasn't there a kind of extreme overhaul of like the design, and they had to really go in and fix what was broken because their styles had really strayed and they just gutted it? Isn't that?
It was very hard won over the past decade and a half. But Old Navy is now bigger than Gap. It rakes in more sales than Gap does. You're seeing like the Loft makes more than Ann Taylor. That sort of thing.
With Old Navy, wasn't it partly that it wasn't just that it was cheap? People thought of it as being tacky. I mean, they had that whole tacky ad campaign with all the washed-up celebrities for years. It wasn't part of the shift, like, because a lot of stuff at H&M is really cheap, but people think H&M is cool, and so it's like making Old Navy just less tacky. Was that a key part of the, or is Old Navy still really tacky, and yet people are still shopping there?
It's probably still pretty tacky, but it's just so cheap that you go there when there's a sale, you buy 1 million shirts for $8.
Well, I want you guys all to stick around. Up next, we're going to talk about the palatial estate where you can take the furniture home with you.